like lyrical, almost like storytelling, like life storytelling with like scholarship and like collective knowing. One of my other favorite books that is like this, but on a very different topic, is On Trails by Robert Moore, where he talks about like the history of trails, but does it through this beautiful like lens of storytelling that just I can't even describe. It's like the kind of literature that I would love to write in my life. That is like so evocative, but so smart and informative, but in a way that is like so easily consumed and understood in a really like human way. So I'm very excited about this. This has been on my Goodreads for way too long, and I'm really glad that I got it. It was very funny because I went to Barnes & Noble. I had a bunch of books that were on my list, but I was also like, you know, going to Barnes & Noble for the experience of being in a bookstore and like seeing what you see, you know. I perused the poetry section, which was like fairly extensive for being Barnes & Noble. Barnes & Noble is not the place that I would choose to go to buy books where I live, but I had tried to go to a different bookstore, which had ended up being closed, and then it was kind of late at night. I mean, it wasn't, it was like after 8 p.m. on a weekend at night, and so I kind of assumed like, oh, it's the summer, things will be open. They were not. But what was open was Barnes & Noble. Damn, these pants are really loud. I have my hands on my legs, and then I move my hands, and what do I do with my hands? I don't know. Anyway, but Barnes & Noble was what was open, and my plight was to go and buy myself books. But it actually brought back a lot of like really lovely memories. My grandma used to live in Morgantown, West Virginia. She still does. Kind of. But when we would go to visit her in West Virginia, she would take me up to the mall and to the Barnes and Noble and would buy me like, she would buy me so many books. It was actually insane how many books she would buy me. Like, I remember coming home from Barnes and Noble, like, and I didn't really realize this as a child, but now as an adult, I'm like, Jesus, Grandma, like, we were ballin' at Barnes and Noble. Once again, saying the word ballin' unironically. But yeah, I mean, I would like see her once a year, and she would just like buy me like a whole big bag full of books. And yeah, I remember distinctly some of those books, but I remember just like the pure joy of going to a bookstore, especially like Barnes & Noble, and just like anything I wanted, I could get. So that is my biggest Barnes & Noble memory, and I don't go to Barnes & Noble often because, you know, I live in the city and there's lots of independent bookstores, and, you know, like, also get a lot of books from little free libraries and from friends and yada yada yada. So this trip to Barnes & Noble was exceptional. But what was funny was that I had like a lot of books, as you'll see, that are like about like feminism and like social justice, kind of like niche, not niche categories, but like, anyway, I go to Barnes & Noble and I'm like, they have to have these books, like I'm pretty sure that they do, but I like don't see it in their like non-fiction shelves, like in these fiction shelves, like I don't see it. And then I'm like walking to the back of the store and there's this like section that's like women's interest, and it was like, it was very odd because like the women's interest section was like way at the back, and like it was next to like the like black authors section, and then there was like disability justice section. They were all like smushed in the back of the Barnes & Noble, and I was like, ugh. kind of about, how do we make social justice the most pleasurable human experience? How can we awaken within ourselves desires that make it impossible to settle for anything less than a fulfilling life? Author and editor Adrienne Marie Brown finds the answer in something she calls pleasure activism, a politics of healing and happiness that explodes the dour myth that changing the world is just another form of work. Drawing on the Black feminist tradition, she challenges us to rethink the ground rules of activism. Her mindset-altering essays are interwoven with conversations and insights from other feminist thinkers, including Audre Lorde, Joan Morgan, Kara Page, Sonia Renee Taylor, and Alexis Pauline Gumbs. Together they cover a wide range of subjects, from sex work to climate change, from race and gender to sex and drugs, building new narratives about how politics can feel good, and how what feels good always has a complex politics of its own. So, I'm really excited to read this. Yeah. The politics of feeling good. And I'm so interested in, like, the duality of both, like, how feeling good is political and how, like, political action and justice are about, like, pleasure. You know what I mean? Like the nexus. Okay. The next book that I have, I was inspired by, oh my god, what is her name? Oh, Madison Moon ASMR to get this book. This book is called What Happened to You. It's by Bruce it's just like it's like a frame of reference, like, and not that I believe that like that is the way that the world works definitively, but it does. I do just notice like it, like I notice patterns, you know, in my life regarding astrology, and I don't know, you're there for it or you're not. I'm into it. So, fearless, radical, and fresh, post-colonial astrology scrutinizes astrology as a political practice and asks if astrology is a language, whose language is it? Astrologer Alice Sparkly Cat cuts into the idea that Western cosmology is universal, interrogating the 7 traditional planets in Western astrology through etymology, coming from the Latin word etumos, meaning truth. Too often magic and astrology are divorced from their potency in cultural contexts, co-opted by neoliberalism, used as a force of oppression, or distilled beyond recognition into applications that belie their individual and collective power. If there is truth in etymology, in history, then we can challenge our own practices, examine our assumptions, and reshape our institutions by asking how magic is accounted for. Intersectional, inclusive, and geared towards queer and BIPOC communities, post-colonial astrology uses our historical and collective constructs of Venus, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, the Sun, and the Moon to rechart our subconscious history, redefine the body in the world, and assert our politics of the personal in astrology and in all things. I'm really excited to read this book. My friend's mom made fun of it though. She was like helping me move. And she's like, post-colonial astrology. I was like, yeah girl, we gotta decolonize astrology. She laughed, I don't know. But it's really interesting to share like with you and with others, like parts of my like spiritual practice. I was raised pretty like agnostic atheist, though my parents are Jewish. And I knew from a young age that that was not my experience of the world. That atheism, well, was not how I felt. I knew that people derive so much meaning from their relationship with God or with the universe or with spirituality, and that I was not willing to deny that you know was not how I felt. Though my parents were both very adamant that, like, you know, my dad would say a lot of shit. Say like, people who believe in God are stupid. And I was like, are you joking? No. Like, even if you don't believe in God, like, people derive so much meaning from their relationship with God, and like, how can you say that? It really rubbed me the wrong way as a child. We would like get into fights about it when I was a teenager, like big fights where I'd be like, you are wrong. And so from a pretty young age I knew like that didn't check out for me. And as I grew into my teens, like I definitely connected more with Judaism, just in a spiritual sense. We were, you know, we didn't go to synagogue, but we practiced Judaism on the high holidays, and but I think as we got older, that was mostly spearheaded by me. It was really important to me I'd always kind of been into astrology in a fun way, and then like started learning more about it, and then started practicing tarot, which felt kind of like when I was, reading about astrology, I felt like I was reading the book, and then when I was practicing tarot, I kind of felt like I was starting to like get my feet on the ground of practicing spirituality. And something that I like about tarot is that it can be as spiritual or removed from spirituality as an individual chooses it to be, and that's something that I very much appreciate. I think when I first started tarot, I was like a little overwhelmed by this spiritual aspect of it.